Hello, everybody. Welcome to the newest episode of the Internet Paladins radio show. I am Jamal.
And I am the Spaniard. And we have news.
We always have news.
We do have news. I will start us off with some news.
All right.
China. We're going to go to China for a little bit. Actually, you know what? Before we go to China, we're going to go to Brussels. Because right now in Brussels, there's a giant separatist, a joint separatist protest movement going on, and all the different separatist groups from all over Europe are there, and they're protesting against the EU and Brussels and basically everything. And we were talking about that in our last episode, right? I think it was the last episode. All the little movements that want to break off to their own countries and stuff like that. So, I don't know, in some sort of weird paradox, they all got together and went to Brussels to protest and say we should get our own country. And most of them are actually from Flanders, I believe. Interestingly enough, Flanders wants to be its own country. I think Grenada should be its own little city-state. What do you say about that?
Well, I don't know, because if that were the case, they'd probably deport me. But
that is true.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to China.
Yeah, what's up in China?
Okay, well, I'm not going to talk about the plane anymore because we're sick of the plane. I'm sick of the plane. And if they find the plane, I'm just going to kick the plane into the ocean because I don't want to hear about the plane anymore.
And then they're going to have to search for it again? Oh, you're a jerk. All right, anyway.
Basically, China is unhappy with its satellite system because it was unable to find the plane, and all the other countries were basically being jerks and not really contributing all that much to the search, satellite-wise. So they're going to create a satellite system that covers the entire planet, that exceeds the abilities of what the Americans currently have. So basically, Chinese guys will be watching you take a poop, whenever you choose to do so. And they will collect that data in Beijing, I'm assuming, and they will use it to spread glorious Chinese-style socialism.
Well, I guess we better start eating more fiber so we can give them a show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me, I wanted to mention, I find it bizarre that in all these search efforts, they keep finding like fields of debris in the ocean, and they're unable to really identify what these items are, which I don't get, because if you look at something like Google Earth, Google satellites are able to like show the individual hairs on an exhibitionist's dick in his backyard, and yet like advanced military satellites can't identify what things in the ocean are. I don't buy it. It seems a little bit odd that they're not able to zoom in and be like, oh, that's a tree, or oh, that's some broken boat floating around or something.
Well, they do send search ships there afterwards, don't they, to identify it? But that's
it seems to be taking them forever. It's like, oh, we identified debris, and like 4 days later, they haven't told anybody what it is yet. Yeah. So,
but how would you let me ask you another question then. How would you identify debris? Like, how would you know if it's debris from a plane or just like someone's, like McDonald's?
Want to know how? This is how. Roll of a die. Because that seems to be exactly what the authorities are doing.
Yeah, it really does. And it's been, 2 weeks now, and still haven't solved it.
No, it's been almost 4 weeks now. This is the fourth week that it's been missing. It just began, I think.
This is the fourth. Are you serious? The fourth week. Well, we said we were not going to talk about the plane, so we're not going to talk about the plane. Instead,
no, we just talked about it for 3 minutes. Got to put on your kicking boot.
I'm telling you, you find that plane, it's just going to be, it's just going to field goal. I'm telling you.
So, to all the grieving Chinese families listening at home, that was the Spaniard who said that.
Thanks.
They're gonna fly here and they're gonna kick you into the ocean. Anyway,
they've all actually flown to Malaysia. Apparently, I don't know what they're going to achieve. Like, what are they going to do? Just like,
they're just gonna stand around shouting at people and just making everybody stressed out and unhappy. That's all they're going to achieve. They're going to be more unhappy and stressed out. The people, their minders that have been assigned are going to be this. Yeah, it's pointless. But you can't really say that anything critical to grieving families or your monster families.
Yeah, that's true.
They're dead. Get new families. Jeez.
What?
Okay, that one was me.
Yeah.
Oh man, the Chinese are gonna come after.
Jamal, and what's your last name again? I can't remember.
That's none of your business.
Jamal McGinty or something like that. Something ridiculous.
Irishman.
I have to.
My last name is actually about 12 names, so yeah. I don't want to waste anybody's time saying what it is.
7 of which are actually Muhammad, and it's variations. Okay,
four, not 7.
Okay.
Jeez.
Sorry.
Anyway,
I actually have to talk about the plane a little bit more because something hilarious came out of 4chan and is being spread around the internet as if it's real news.
For anyone who doesn't know, 4chan is where autistic people and retards hang out on the internet. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, and generally cause nuisances. Okay, so basically this rectangular-shaped black square was posted, and apparently this came from one of the people on the flight, and they texted it apparently as a plea for help, as the story goes, and essentially he took it. The guy who took it is apparently the IBM worker. I don't know if you're familiar with the people aboard the plane.
No, I couldn't care less.
No, his name was Philip Wood. And he apparently worked for IBM. And anyway, he had his iPhone 5, and he took this picture from inside his cell, because he's apparently being imprisoned somewhere. So, and this is his statement that accompanied the solid black image. The picture posted with the following text is as follows. I have been held hostage by unknown military personnel after my flight was hijacked, and I was blindfolded. I work for IBM, and I have managed to hide my cell phone in my ass during the hijack.
He works for IBM. You know he's got like an Android phone or something. So that.
I have been separated from the rest of the passengers, and I am in a cell. My name is Philip Wood. I think I have been drugged as well, and cannot think clearly. So there you have it, a man with an iPhone 5, which is huge, by the way, up his butt, and he's in a cell.
It's an iPhone, is it?
Yeah.
How does one insert an iPhone into their anus? I don't get it. What?
And basically, this is the story floating around, and all the sources basically go back to one source, which doesn't even really offer any explanation as to where he got the picture from. Now, I actually examined the EXIF data on the picture, and it actually has the coordinates, Diego Garcia, and take it from an iPhone 5, etc. Stuff like that. But you could easily edit that information in like 10 seconds or something. But I know someone has obviously, done this to troll, I think, everyone, which is horrible and horribly funny.
Because it's impossible. I mean, so his plane's being hijacked, and you probably have only like a window of like a minute in order to react before somebody's noticed you on the plane. So like she's like, hijackers. I'm gonna need my phone later. Put it in my anus. And then it's like, and it's like he just shoves it in like 2 seconds. Like, wouldn't he need like a few minutes to like work it in there or something?
Yeah. There's no way. Even a regular iPhone, before they got larger, I don't think you'd be able to slide that one in.
No, unless he's like the goatsy guy or something.
Yeah.
But anyway. Well, that's okay. That's enough about the flight. I've got some news about that part of the world.
Okay.
Not much going on here recently to talk about that I'm interested in. So let's talk about Brunei. The Sultan of Brunei, who everyone knows otherwise as Moneybags, is bringing Sharia law to Brunei in increments. And he wants the full Sharia system, as he says in his country, and says that such great things as dismemberment punishments, floggings, stonings are going to be introduced, and it's going to be a great time for his country, he thinks. They haven't had the death penalty for years, but I think they're going to bring it back. So,
what law did they have prior to this?
I guess they had some elements of Sharia, but it wasn't full everything. So I'm not sure. I guess they probably would have had a lot of British laws too at the time.
Yeah, it actually the story surprises me, not because they're introducing it.
But that they haven't already?
Yeah, that's what actually surprises me. Especially in that part of the world. It's right, that country's right inside Malaysia, or the eastern half of Malaysia, which itself touches Indonesia. So that's kind of crazy.
Well, some of the offenses that he wants to have punished are insulting the Prophet Muhammad, drinking alcohol, getting pregnant outside of marriage, and, of course, sodomy, which will be punishable by stoning. Or perhaps people will throw iPhones at the offender and see if they insert them. But anyway, and his reasoning, he says, this is his direct quote, "It is because of our need that Allah the Almighty in all his generosity has created laws for us so that we can utilize them to obtain justice."
That's interesting, because none of those laws are actually in the Quran. So where is he getting these laws from?
From all the other stuff that apparently Allah made that most Muslims believe is as legitimate as the Quran, even though the Quran says that there's nothing else but the Quran. So there's no footnote at the bottom of the Quran, like in a Tolkien novel that says except for the following cases, blah blah blah. It doesn't say that. So
there's no. Please consult Appendix J for instructions on how to.
But I don't think the Sultan of Brunei really cares about that, because he's worth £24 billion, and he lives in a palace that has 1,788 rooms. So he doesn't have any problems.
No, he doesn't. And you know what? I think a lot of times these guys, they're using Sharia law as an excuse just to increase their stranglehold.
Oh, absolutely. He goes on to say that, which is ridiculous. He says that he believes that an absolute Islamic monarch, or the system of an absolute Islamic monarch, is a strong and effective firewall against the challenges of globalization, specifically the internet. So he wants to protect his kingdom from foreign influence, and so he thinks that Sharia law will effectively work towards that end. Now, there's a large Filipino community in. About 30,000 of them in Brunei, and since they're kind of our Asian relatives, or at least your Asian relatives, we should feel sorry for them. And they're all Catholics, and they're kind of unhappy. The Philippine ambassador, Nestor Ochoa, is warning his warning his countrymen that perhaps they should leave, which perhaps they should. And Father Robert Leon, who's a Catholic Catholic priest in Brunei, he said that there are now concerns about baptism because it's illegal, according to Sharia law, to do that, apparently, because it prohibits the propagation of religion other than Islam to a Muslim or a person with no religion. So if you were to do a baptism, you're propagating Catholicism on the baby, apparently. And, So anyway, he's not going to do baptisms anymore until he finds out more information. So I wonder if England is going to recall the Gurkha rifles, or they're going to use them to kill the Sultan of Brunei, or if they're just going to leave them there and support him because they get lots of money.
Well, you know what? Considering that the I don't know who what we'd call them, but the law branch, I guess, of London. The people who handled the courts and stuff like that. Anyway.
Oh, the Lords, aren't they? The House of Lords or something?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They're all archaic names in England.
But anyway, they're already introducing Sharia law and actually integrating it with the English law. So, and it's begun with wills, and they allowed the operation of local Sharia courts and stuff like that.
Huh. So what do you think? Okay, let's go back in time about 800 years
All right.
and have a meeting between Richard the Lionheart and Saladin and tell them that in 800 years in the future, not only will the Holy Land not be occupied by either of their respective faiths, but that Islamic law will be introduced to England. How do you think they would react to that?
I think Richard would be pretty upset. I think they would both be very confused because they'd ask, "Well, who occupies the Holy Land then?" And if you had said the Jews, they would spent the next hour laughing, right? No.
Yeah, and then they probably would have joined forces and marched against the Jews.
Yeah.
But I don't know. If you told Richard that his country would be lost to nonsense, as England has been, he probably would have just gone back to his buggering boys and had gay sex until he felt better. So, because Richard the Lionheart was an enormously gay man, apparently. So, despite being very large and strong and good at fighting, he was very gay as well. So, which is strange because he was a champion of God during the Crusades.
Was he?
Anyway, yeah, or at least that's what he thought. I think he was a champion of himself.
Yeah, I think so. It's strange because you think of a country like England, and you think, on one side, there's these fanatics that want Sharia law. Then on the other side, there are these nihilistic, hedonistic, I don't know, just people who just want to drink and throw up and contribute nothing to society. They're all white people, mostly. All
those drinking game people or whatever?
Yeah, like you just have, I just mean British people in general. And it's just, I don't know, the country's just, there's nothing left. Like, where is Britain? There's nothing in Britain that actually represents Britain anymore. And
I don't know.
Like Sharia law, an entire generation of youth who don't want to do anything except stare at their cell phones, or knock out, punch each other in the streets, and drink. Like, it's crazy.
I think it's the problem is that the youth of England are unable to perhaps be English because they're youth of the internet, and the internet is its own country now. I'm fully convinced. And so you have youth from Canada, from America, from England, from Spain, from everywhere, and they're all of the same nationality now because they all go to the same websites, have the same jokes, the same memes, which is some bullshit term that means repetitive crap that nobody likes. And so they don't have any attachment to the honorable history of their countries anymore. I mean, American youth are probably pretty quick to be like, "Oh, America," because it's easy to do that. And I don't know if Canadian youth, during my time there, I didn't really pay much attention to their politics, but I think most of them were too busy staring at their phones to have an opinion. So, I think the youth of today or tomorrow's people are going to be of a global internet culture, and they're not going to identify with any of the past. And therefore, they'll have no concerns about things like Sharia law being slowly introduced in England because they'll believe, as the internet believes, that everybody, shouldn't be mean, which is strange because everyone on the internet is mean. But if you're racist or if you're in any sort of way discriminatory, internet people will jump on you and attack you, despite the fact that they themselves are more than likely guilty of those things. But anyway.
So can you imagine the clash of these two generations? Well, not really, or two groups within the same generation. You have one half that fanatically demands things be done their way, and then you have the other half who fanatically, rejects anyone telling them what to do. So what is the result of that going to be? It's going to be civil war, chaos.
Entertainment for us.
Yeah.
I'll continue to do work on the plantation that we've purchased in the hills, so that we can retreat there and broadcast once the world starts to fall apart.
By hand crank radio? We'll just
hand crank radio. Yeah. So, I have some news I wanted to bring in.
All right.
There's a place in America called Alabama which is in the south, and from what I've gathered is a place that many people like to make fun of for being kind of old-fashioned and super evangelical Christian.
Yeah.
Well, apparently they're so Christian in that area that it's now illegal for churches to give food to the homeless because regulations went into effect in January about food trucks. Because I guess the restaurants in the area were unhappy about competition. And so, what are the regulations in here? So the regulations were put in place to protect brick and mortar vendors from food trucks, which drive around selling food to people and have been accused of poaching customers from established locations. I guess that's a reasonable concern if you're a restaurant guy. I mean, if a fry truck pulls up in front of you and or a paella truck, drives up in front of your restaurant and starts offering food. It's not so good. But apparently the regulations apply to any food vehicle. So even church donation trucks, like the Meals on Wheels or something like that. So I guess one guy who was delivering food to the homeless was arrested. So, yeah.
That's kind of ridiculous. I've actually seen a lot of clips and a lot of news about the feeding of homeless people becoming illegal for various reasons. There's that reason that you mentioned. Another cited the possibility for the food to be tampered with and stuff like that, even though it's obviously not, right? It's actually like a group of people trying to actually feed homeless people, but the police will come along and say, nope, you can't give out food to people who need it. And it's kind of weird. I wonder why they're doing that. Maybe because it's a loss of control in a way, right? Because then those homeless people aren't going to the food banks. They aren't. I don't know. It just seems to me weird. I cannot think of a reason why you would not want the homeless to be fed.
Yeah, I'm just looking into this now. It says more than 50 large American cities have adopted what they call anti-camping or anti-food sharing laws. And so the police are strictly enforcing the laws in these cities. So it seems the goal is to get homeless people to go away. Where are they going to go?
That's what.
Are they just going to be like, you know what? Yeah, I've had enough. I'm going to go home. Like, no.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Society's just, it's getting crazier and crazier. Eventually, they're just going to round them up into camps and then execute them, right? Everyone's afraid to say it, but that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
They're just going to.
This makes no sense. Listen to this. The politicians believe that if the homeless can't get any more free food, and if they keep getting thrown into jail for illegal camping, they'll eventually decide to go somewhere else where they won't be hassled so much. From what I understand, a lot of homeless people are quite pleased to go to jail because they have 3 square meals a day, showers, and a warm place to sleep at night, which is better than sitting on the gun-stained sidewalk of a city while people ignore them. So, and yeah, so that's not a very good solution.
No, and what happens if everyone has that law in effect? So if they leave,
the homeless are just going to be like migrating around the country. Hobos, I think, is what they were, right? The old train homeless people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't know. You know what I think it's time for? I think it's time to roll a dice. Or a die, if you're one of those guys.
I am one of those guys. Anyway. To roll a die, you had no more news? I had one more piece.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah.
Let me just mention this quickly. It seems that around the world, employers are increasingly viewing autism as an asset to the workplace and are making efforts to hire autistic people, not because they feel some kind of pity towards autistic people, but because autistic people are often so focused and detail-oriented and so resistant to any kind of change to routines that they're making very good fact-checkers and like editors and things like that. So it's kind of interesting. I don't think I'd want to work with an autistic man because if I walked up to him and said, hey, do you want a coffee? He'd probably scream at me and tear up my throat for interrupting him. But still, Yeah, it seems that this is being done all over the place now.
So they said what they're essentially saying is that they want robots or slaves, right? That's basically what
Yeah,
they're saying.
of course.
They don't want thinking individuals.
No.
They want people who, I don't know, if you even believe autism exists, which I don't.
Yeah, neither do I. And
So
I'm sure, considering we're on the internet and we are the internet paladins, that 90% of the people who might ever watch this are autistic or claim to be and will probably yell at us. But we are the internet paladins, which means we are the champions of the internet. And we fight for what is right. And autism is not it. But anyway.
You know, at every turn, the worker is getting screwed over. At every single turn. Every single turn. They essentially just want slaves now, right?
Yeah. Here we go. Here, listen to this. He says that they're considering positions such as writing manuals to give clients very precise instructions on how to install software. So they want an autistic man to do this because he would excel at going step by step without skipping details that others might miss. And the business procurement process, such as getting invoices or managing the supply chain, is yet another area in which an autistic person might shine. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess you could make the argument that these are people and they do deserve to have jobs, and 85% of autistic people in America, it seems, are unemployed. But is an autistic man really more qualified for that position than somebody who isn't autistic? I mean, sure, he might be so detail-oriented, but just wait until there's like a computer error, or there's a meeting suddenly, or a boss says something, or a coworker does something that interrupts them, and just wait until that person turns into like a screeching chimpanzee, like just rushing around the office, having a meltdown or a panic attack, which autistic people often do when things that they are very, very focused on go wrong. So, I mean, autistic people, from my understanding, are indeed very good at detail-oriented things. Perhaps you have an autistic man who loves trains, who can recite to you, the length and weight and engine power of every train in the world. But if you were to say, as he's reciting that information, you know what, okay, thanks, but I'm going to go away, they would probably not like that very much. So if you've got a man writing a manual step by step, and you said, Johnny, we're going to have a meeting. Why don't you come and talk to us for a minute? I don't think he would. I don't think he'd like that.
Isn't that also discrimination? Because if someone doesn't get a job because of autism, it's discrimination. So aren't able-bodied people being discriminated against?
I don't know. Maybe. If they... Well, I guess they're saying that they think the autistic person is the most qualified for that particular job. So I guess that would be discrimination. But
yeah, so what about white people being the most qualified for thinking jobs?
Are you saying that they are or that they aren't?
Well, like, I'm just putting forth a scenario. Like, if they can say that autistic people are best for this job, are black people suddenly the best for the jobs involving carrying things to and fro, or are white people?
I'm sure there's people who think that.
So you know what I mean? Like, it's just.
I'm sure that there are people out there who think that I am fit only to be selling carpets or something like that. But I don't know. I can think. I guess. Well, I wish, but I don't have the resources. You'll have to talk to my brother Hamid. He might be able to hook you up. But anyway, I don't know. Discrimination. We don't really have to deal with that so much here. I mean, there are discrimination issues, but I think people here have a more uneasy truce than they do across the ocean.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the two of us sitting here making a radio show. Well, I'm sitting here. You're out wherever the hell you are right now. But a few hundred years ago, our ancestors were at war with one another during the Reconquista. So, which I haven't forgiven. So you might want to watch your back.
Give it up, bro. Give it up. Yeah, I don't know.
My people will retake their lands. But anyway.
Well, they already are. pretty much.
Yeah. Well, we've bypassed Spain entirely and gone straight for England.
Yeah.
But
I don't
next
know.
stop, Greenland. But anyway,
Greenland.
yeah. Well, hey, Greenland. It's green. No, it's not.
Nope.
No. So anyway, discrimination. Yeah. I don't know. Autism. Yeah.
I don't know. It's ridiculous, and discrimination only even exists because of how the world and the economy is organized. Right? It's organized to fit people like little cogs into little wheels. Get little gears going and stuff like that. If it wasn't like that, it wouldn't make a difference, right? Frankie, if he was autistic, would just count the beans to make sure there were enough beans for the tribe to eat or something. You know what I mean? Like there'd be a role for everybody.
Sure.
But because it's not like that, and it's unnatural the way things are organized, suddenly you have a position that's suddenly good for someone who apparently has a mental illness. Am I allowed to call it a mental illness? Is it actually a mental illness, or what is it?
Yeah, I think it is. What do they call it? Autism spectrum disorder or something like that? Which includes a wide range of things like the so-called Asperger's syndrome and other things like that. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. It's basically a form of retardation, and as far as I'm concerned. So, they want to hire retards to do certain positions. Yeah. So I think it's what you said. They want machines, right?
Yeah, they do.
And such a person who is able to very carefully sit there and count figures for 8 hours without being interrupted is a machine. And I think one of the things that defines autism is that such people are very poor at social interaction. They don't know how to relate to people, how to understand emotions in other people. In some cases are not even aware that other people have emotions. So that sounds like a machine as well. So some kind of calculating, cool thinking, machine of great mental capacity and yet no emotional capacity. And that's perfect for a company.
Yeah, it is. Right? So does that mean that you and I, are we autistic by that definition?
How do you figure?
Well, do we have any compassion for other human beings? Let's roll the dice.
Yes. Well, perhaps we don't have any compassion, but on the other hand, I'm also not good at anything, so I don't think I qualify as autistic, just as an asshole. But anyway, let's... You heard it here, folks. The Paladins are assholes, but we are the Paladins, so that still makes us better. All right, rolling a die, and let's find out how wrong we are by talking about the Quran.
All right.
Watch it turn to something that makes us look like jerks. Okay.
Well, pretty much all of it makes us look like jerks, so it's not going to be too difficult for it to do.
Indeed. Let's see. All right. I guess, should I move? I should read from the number to the next number. So here we go. It says, if you doubt what we have revealed to you, ask those who have read the scriptures before you. The truth has come to you from your Lord, therefore do not doubt it, nor shall you deny the revelations of God, for then you will surely be among the lost. For those for whom the word of your Lord shall be fulfilled will not have faith, even if they be given every sign until they face the woeful scourge, whereas otherwise every community, had it believed, would have profited from its faith. But it was so only with Jonah's people. When they believed, we spared them the penalty of disgrace in this life and suffered them to take their ease for a while. Had your Lord pleased, all the people of the earth would have believed in him, one and all. Would you then force people to have faith? None can have faith except by God's leave. He will visit his scourge upon the senseless. Say, behold what the heavens and the earth contain, but neither signs nor warnings will avail the unbelievers. That is that.
The story of Jonah is actually really interesting. And in the Bible, we were talking about the Quran. In the Bible, I don't know if it's necessarily all true, what the Bible says, but the story is pretty hilarious. Basically, he is on a ship, and he's on the ship with other people because he's trying to get away from God, because he knows that he's been assigned to do something and he doesn't want to do it. So he's trying to get away from God.
On a boat? That's not going to work.
On a boat. And and so a storm comes along, right? And it's threatening to sink the boat. And one of them, and everyone else on the boat with him, they're polytheists, right? They don't believe in God. So they say that the best way to solve this problem and not die in the storm is to basically cast lots. And whoever draws, they'll throw them overboard as a sacrifice. So of course Jonah, he draws, right? So they toss him overboard, and a giant fish or a whale or something supposedly eats him. But in the Quran, it does say it actually, the language is different. In the Bible, he's actually inside the whale or something like that. But in the Quran, it's either he's being attacked by a fish. Maybe he's attacked by a shark or something like that, or wherever, depending on where he was. But eventually, so basically from inside the whale, he begs for forgiveness, and then God says, "Well, okay." So the whale vomits him up, and he falls onto the shore, and a plant grows beside him and gives him shade, like immediately, instant. Red alert style. A plant just grows out of the beach.
It springs out of the ground?
Yeah, this is from the Bible, mind you. This isn't from the Quran. And gives him shade. And then, so he's given his mission anew. You have to go to Nineveh. I think that's how you say the city's name. Nineveh or something. And you have to tell them to repent, or that's it. It's over for them. And he's like, oh, come on. There's no one there that's going to believe God. Well, come on. Why are we wasting our time here? And so God has a worm eat the branch of the plant that's giving him shade, so the plant falls over, and so he's being baked in the sun. And so again, he's annoyed. He's like, oh God, just kill me already. I'm tired of this world, this life. And God's like, nope, you got to go to Nineveh, and you gotta preach the message. And he's like, come on, there's no one there. It's the same argument again. So he goes up on a hill, and he's looking over Nineveh, and he basically makes a negotiation with God or something like that. And he says, if there's 100,000 people who believe there, we'll go to save them. I can't remember what the negotiation is exactly, but eventually it whittles down to being, if there's even one person there worth saving, isn't the whole city worth saving, God says. And Jonah's like, I guess so. So Jonah eventually goes into the city, walks amongst all the people, and basically says, repent, the end is nigh. Like one of those guys with the sandwich boards. But
right.
But he does with no enthusiasm or anything like that. And as we know from the other stories in the Quran, basically when a messenger goes to the city, they basically either tell the messenger he's an idiot, chase him out, or kill him, right? Like, instantly. There's no discussion. It's just like, get lost, we don't believe you.
Of course. That always happens to anyone with a new idea. It's human nature.
When Jonah went to Nineveh, the moment he started doing this, the king heard him. And the king's like, what? What's this? What's going on? It immediately issued a proclamation that everyone in the city had to repent. Everyone in the city, and this is like a city of like 1 million people or something, okay? This was a huge city. Everyone took off their clothes immediately. Everyone put on sackcloth. They ran out into the fields. They even put sackcloth onto the animals, and everyone repented, even the animals. And Jonah's like, what the fuck, And the city.
How did the animals repent? What did they even do?
and the city was saved. And Jonah was like, "This is crazy, yo." We probably didn't say that, but he said.
I'm pretty sure he didn't.
The Babylonian or Hebrew equivalent of whatever language he spoke of that, and the same sort of gist is related in the Quran. Jonah was rebellious. Jonah's like, I'm an idiot. I made a mistake. Please give me a second chance. Sent them to the city. And the city repented. And that is the only, just as you said, in the whole Quran, it's the only place that's ever repented. And it was saved. It was spared.
It's a strange story that the king would just be like, everybody repent, and everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
Were they sincere in their repentance? I guess God was influencing them. In that case, not the king. So, yeah. Well,
it's interesting how.
But did the whale repent?
Well, I think
is the whale. Is there ever a conclusion to his story? Oh no, of course not. But anyway.
Well, I think in the whale's case, the whale was actually fulfilling a command to eat Jonah, if it was a whale, or whatever, the fish, whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's actually really interesting because in every other story you have a believing messenger who goes to a disbelieving city, but Jonah is the only case where you have a rebellious messenger going to a believing city. It's the exact opposite. It's really interesting. It's something to reflect upon. They say people who have read the Quran, and I agree with this, that the Quran is written symmetrically. Basically, there's always balancing sides to stuff, and you can find these little balancing sides, like in the story of Jonah, where he's a rebellious guy going to a believing city. And there's a lot of other little parallels hidden here and there that one can also find. So yeah. So how do you feel about all this? If would you go onto a boat and try to outrun God?
Not really sure how that's possible, so I don't think so.
He obviously believed in God, right? Because he was fearful enough of God to get onto a boat. But what was he thinking? Like what? How do you come to that decision?
God, maybe he thought that God would just stand there on the shore, shaking his fist at his receding boat, like, "Damn you! My one weakness is the ocean." No, I don't think.
Nope, ridiculous. So
he was shown.
He was shown.
Yes.
And that was pretty much the conclusion of the story in the Bible, and that's pretty much how it concluded in the Quran as well. That the city was saved. Obviously, they didn't last that way forever. I guess people came who didn't believe because the Nineveh of that time is not. Where is it today? It's nowhere today, right? So they eventually gave up.
Yeah, but that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Okay, let's roll again.
Roll of the die. Okay, roll a 1. So I believe that is the Inquisition.
I believe.
I shall.
Oh, okay. You shall inquire.
I was going to allow you to because I led the chronic.
Okay.
Well, I pointed at the book anyway.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think for the last several shows I've always been inquisiting you anyway. So let's let you inquisit me for once, since you are in fact the Spaniard. So go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I think you last. I think the island one wasn't it in the Hyoyan Seas or something. We're gonna forget about that. Okay.
I'd hoped to forget about that, but now you brought it back up again. Yeah. Okay. What kind of paladin wants to plant the seeds of a Korean woman into the earth?
When you force me onto a desert island, I have to do strange things to survive.
Seems so. All right. Well, what's your difficult question for me, sir?
I actually had a question, but I wrote it erroneously. Okay, I'm going to do something different here. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to do a question. This isn't a question to entrap you, even though it's going to sound like I'm entrapping you.
Basically, you're entrapping me. Okay, I'm prepared.
Okay, you live in an alternate reality. Okay, you're not married. Okay, totally different reality. You've been dating a girl for 2 years. Okay.
Okay.
And she's great. Got great times. Nothing's wrong and stuff like that. Everything's going well. Maybe even you share an apartment or something together now or whatever.
I thought you said everything's going well.
What?
No, I'm just kidding.
What? No,
I'm just making a joke. Sharing apartments with women is usually never enjoyable. But anyway.
So you're one of those guys, eh?
Yeah. I like my own space. You know that. That's why I kicked you out of the studio. Anyway, go on.
Jerk. I'm currently actually in that little enclave in Africa. You know that one in
Yeah.
Morocco, and
Yeah.
it's not so bad. It's warm.
I guess you can come back.
Yeah, maybe
We'll
one
see.
day.
Anyway, go
Okay,
on with your question. Okay, so I'm in a 2-year relationship with a girl. It's great.
nice girl, very pretty, very pretty. In fact, exceptionally pretty. Well, almost a little too pretty, actually.
How's this possible? Okay. Anyway.
Okay, and then you kind of find something out
Uh-oh.
at the end of the 2 years. You
Uh-oh.
you
I know what you're going to say.
you find out that she's she's actually transgendered. She was actually a man in the beginning, and she transformed into a woman. And she looks completely like a woman. She acts completely like a woman. You would never have been able to tell ever, unless you had looked at an X-ray or a CAT scan, or has she told you? Okay, she's told you finally. She can't
I see.
hold it in any longer.
I see.
Okay, these are my questions. What do you think about all this?
What? I don't know. What do I think? What? So I come home, one day from work, and my girlfriend's like, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know."
No. It's actually more like, "Hey, I have something to tell you."
What? Oh, so she drops the ice.
No, I'm not. This isn't supposed to be a silly question. This is supposed to be an actual, philosophical, spiritual kind of question. Like she just tells you in her normal voice, because she has a girl's voice now. So what do you think about all this?
I would require some time to organize my thoughts. I would probably nod like maybe 400 or 500 times consecutively, while slowly backing away. And then my brain would still fail to come to some sort of conclusion. So I would go for a very long walk, during which several things would occur. One, the realization that I had probably had sex with a man many, many, many times. Two, that I had been planning, some sort of future with a person who is not honest, and not honest about something that is kind of a big deal.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you there, and I'm going to tell you that she just found out herself.
What? How?
Maybe it's one of like those Korean dramas where she was in an accident, and the only way to save her was to turn him into a woman. And
then they forgot that they were spending the last 20 years of their lives as a man. So they're amnesia.
Yeah. I don't want dishonesty to play a part.
Oh, this sounds like a Japanese anime series, like an amnesiac, transgendered girl.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I know what you think, and okay, how do you react? What do you say? See, wouldn't want to be.
I don't think I would say it in that place.
Like, would you? Would you go? Would you stay?
I would go, because there's a few reasons for this, and one of which should come to mind immediately. If any, I'm not gay, so I'm not interested in being with somebody who was born. Mm-hmm. I mean, sure, you can have the surgery and hormonal treatments and makeovers to the point where a man is completely indistinguishable from a beautiful woman. I've seen such people on TV, and yes, I'll admit they look great, better than many beautiful women in many cases. But just some fundamental calculation in my mind, I think, would prevent me from being able to stay at that point, because I would know deep down that to do so would be gay, and of course, as we both know, that's not okay, according to a certain big guy upstairs. So
okay, so I have another question for you.
You're really trying to trap me, aren't you?
Is it really gay if you're The two of you are engaging in the Italian chandelier.
How could it not be gay if we're doing that? All right. Anyway.
And
Okay.
and she, but what makes her not a woman?
Actually, I don't have an answer for that, and that's what makes it difficult. Because if somebody believes that they are a woman, are physically a woman in every way except birth, I don't know. Are they? I don't think I'm really qualified to say yes or no. Or is that person a man or a woman at this point? Because in every way that functionally matters in that person's life, they are a woman.
Mm.
But just the knowledge, I think, would eat at me. And even if I was, going to decide, you know what, I believe this person is a woman now, and I think, there should be no punishment to continuing this. And you know what, I love this person or whatever. Tell what everyone thinks. Somewhere in the back of my mind would just be this calculation being gone through repeatedly, and I think eventually it would wear on me to the point where it would build into something, and I would start to try and find some kind of hints or some kind of evidence of that person's masculinity somewhere, and I would start to mistrust them, or I don't know. I don't think it would work out in the end because. I would start fabricating reasons to not like them. I think I don't know. I'm not so open-minded that I would just be like, "Oh, he used to be a man. Who gives a shit?" Plus, I would, still be wondering if there would be some sort of punishment in store for me someday. If by my definition and her definition, she is a woman. But if I were to die and discover, of course, that the Abrahamic religion was in fact real, and that I am indeed being judged by my actions, and someone were to say, well, you were having sex with a man for the last 35 years. Mm-hmm. What do you say for yourself? So I don't know. I think that would be worrisome. I don't know what I'd do. Honestly, I can't really give you an honest answer, because if I was in that situation, my attitude towards that person would have been affected by the experiences we've had. Mm-hmm. So if I was in love with that person, it might distort my thinking in some way. So I don't know.
I have two more levels to this, just to stretch our minds even further.
I really shouldn't have kicked you out of the studio. Okay.
Okay. Let's say. Okay, let's say she's actually a woman. She's always been a woman. Okay. From the very beginning, and she's in an accident, and she loses all her woman bits, but it's she's reconstructed, so that everything works okay, but it's not there anymore. Do you understand what I mean?
So she's just an androgynous, almost the childlike body, or.
No. No, she's like a normal woman, but say she's been in a car accident and she's had to have all the defining parts down there that make her a woman removed. Okay,
so in other words, her reproductive organs have been removed.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like a hysterectomy or whatever they call it.
Yeah, I can't think of...
They have to sew shut her vagina or something like that, or.
Oh no, she's normal. She's normal, but she just doesn't
also
have
she just
those
can't.
organs.
She just can't have a baby. That's basically it. I don't give a shit about that.
Okay, hang on. I don't know if I'm getting my point across. Everything that defines her as a natural woman is gone. Okay? It's gone. She could be say if a man didn't have those internal organs, because that's the only really feature that I can think of that separates men and women, right?
Okay.
So the man doesn't have his parts. The woman doesn't have her parts. Who is man and who is woman?
Well, I guess if you were to go by that person's sex, I guess hard to say. I don't know how you define that.
Would you go by birth? Right?
I think I would. Yeah, of course. Okay. And the fact that they would have spent their entire lives to that point as a woman, and I'm pretty sure just the fact that they would lose their organs doesn't mean that they're no longer women to them. So
okay. So I'm going to throw another wrench into this.
Oh my!
And this is the last one, because I don't think this question can really be answered fully without deep thought. But when a human being is created, they're all female. Everyone, you and I were females.
I know. Yeah.
So, if it's at birth, from when? From that point where it's determined when you come out, or is it when you are conceived? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, you know what, let's just roll the dice.
Yeah. The second question wasn't really related to the first anymore because that's a different person. So,
yeah.
I mean, so to summarize, if I found out that my girlfriend of many years, who I was madly in love with, was actually at one point a man and was suffering from some sort of convenient amnesia to make it into an anime storyline, would I remain with that person? I don't know. And the second question, if my girlfriend had an accident and had her lady bits removed, would I still consider her a woman? Yes. So there you go. Okay. So let me roll the dice and find out what nonsense we can make fools of ourselves talking about now. I rolled it again, so let me re-roll. And I rolled that one again. That's 3 Inquisitions and 2 Quranic discussions rolled so far. 4 Inquisitions. These 4-sided dice don't really want to... There we go, Conspiracy Corner. Okay.
Okay. Do you have a conspiracy, or you want me to...
I haven't really heard of anything very compelling recently, so do you? I know that you know about every conspiracy that there is. And in fact, you're probably behind most of them. So...
Okay. I have one here that's interesting, and I've labeled it Egypt and Black People.
Okay.
Egypt and Black People. Right now, the dominant theory is that the Egyptians were essentially, either Arabic or sort of the kind of people that were pre-Arabic. However, if you look at the statues of the pharaohs, many of them have black faces.
Right. I read an article about that a while ago. Yeah.
So, what does this mean? Does this mean that, were the Egyptians actually black? Were there a mix of peoples that comprised, quote, Egypt, unquote? And what does this mean, geography-wise? Because, most, black people come from below the Sahara, right?
Yeah. Well, I think I know a bit about that time period as far as Egypt goes. They used to use they call the Nubian people as slaves, and many of the Nubians were quite dark, according to history. Although the Nubians actually, even in as far as Morocco, in some cases, I think their empire stretched. But there were
really?
What do they call them? The Mamluks, I think, was the name the Egyptians had for their slave soldiers and their bodyguards and stuff. The Mamluks were raised from childhood as slave soldiers, and they were incredibly good. And I think many of them were African originally. But yeah, so there were blacks, as in like the dark-skinned black people used by the Egyptians in their military. I'm not really sure if they were also part of their society. I guess it makes sense. If you think about it, a lot of what we know about Egypt is from Hollywood movies and from like reports from the Romans and the Greeks and British explorers and all people who very much enjoyed transplanting their own cultural identity on others. Also, keep in mind, Egypt was conquered not only by the Greeks under Alexander, but also by the Romans. So there must have been generation upon generation of intermingling at some point about 2,000 years ago. So maybe at one point when the ancient Egyptians were in power, they were all, or in maybe large cases, dark-skinned Africans. And then after, more interaction with Mediterranean peoples lightened over time. And, there's migrations and stuff too. So there could have been, Arabic people moving in, Berber people moving in, and Bedouin people moving in. So I don't know. That's a highly trafficked area, right? It's kind of the gateway from Africa to the Middle East. So there's always people coming and going. So I don't think. Yeah, I think what you said that it was very, many cultures is probably the most accurate, because I think Egypt would have been a big pot filled with different cultures
Yeah. So,
from the area.
so that sort of does away then with the the mono culture that we kind of get, like you said, from Hollywood and stuff like
Yeah.
that, with everyone kind of looking identical, either white or slightly Arabic, really.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
doesn't even really make sense for them. I mean, Egypt, their empire at the time extended a reasonable length down the Nile,
Mm-hmm.
around part of the Sahara, I think, and so they would have had contact with Ethiopia, and or what became Ethiopia, and
Well,
further.
yeah,
So
that's assuming the Sahara even existed then, right? We're just kind of assuming that could have been all green.
I think the Sahara is something. I read about it. It was like 10,000 years old or something.
Yeah.
I think it's always been there, but it's growing at an exponential rate. Let's find out what Google says. How old is the Sahara? That's not very helpful. Let's see here. Yeah.
Because this almost leads into another conspiracy theory, which is that the Egyptian civilization is much older than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
But that's pretty hard to know, I guess. Although geologists have taken a look at the Sphinx, and it does seem like it's been there for a while. But you can't really, just because rock is there, it's hard to really know when it was chiseled.
Yeah. Well, here it says there are all kinds of people in the area. The Nubians, of course. During the Neolithic era, before the onset of desertifications around 9500 BC. So yeah, I guess you could say that the Sahara Desert is only about 12,000 years old. That's been spreading very quickly over the last few millennia. But it seems that there was a large population over what is now barren desert, the Wadi al Kab people. So yeah, pre-dynastic Egyptians of southern Egypt were herding cattle and stuff a long time ago. So it seems, yeah, there would have been Nubians, Egyptians, Phoenicians were intermingling with them, Greeks, of course. So there would have been a lot of combinations, I guess.
Yeah. I guess that also dismisses another sort of disparaging remark that no great empires have ever come out of Africa. Because
really, what about the Carthaginians? They're a pretty great empire.
Well, yeah, but you get that same Hollywood slant. They weren't black. They were, of course, white or
Right.
North Africa.
Yeah, that's right. The north coast of Africa is often seen as like it's Africa only geographically, right? But no, I identify as African, so. I may not look it
definitely
specifically to many people. I could be from many different places, but
yeah.
I guess you just call me swarthy and incredibly good looking. But anyway, yeah. Well, that reminds me of it's not a conspiracy so much as it is just a theory that somebody came up with about 100 years ago. Do you know I think a Norwegian explorer named Thor Heyerdahl?
The last name sounds familiar.
Thor or Tor Heyerdahl.
Yeah.
He sailed the Kon-Tiki raft expedition. I think around the 30s or the 40s. He wanted to decide or discover how it was that people traveled to Polynesia, because there have been populations of people on these remote islands for thousands of years, and he wanted to know, well, how is that possible? How do they get there without sailing ships and things like that? And so he built a raft, and he sailed it from Peru to one of the islands in Polynesia. It was something like 102-day journey of just him and like a few other guys on a raft. And he got there, and he was showing how it would be possible that ancient peoples were linked by sea more than we thought. And so it was quite easy for the Polynesian people to migrate across the ocean because they learned how.
Yeah, but sorry, I just want to interject. Yeah, but how is that possible? Because he already knows the island's there. How if you don't know the island's there, you'd just be setting off into the ocean, wouldn't you?
I think, I'm thinking that maybe people just thought, let's go see what's out there, and they started sailing. I don't know. Maybe they had some kind of religious belief that they were compelled to do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe they had some kind of technology that we can't comprehend that revealed to them the location of islands. Or, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't think their history has preserved that information, sadly. But he later on did another experiment where he thought that it was quite possible that ancient Egyptians had contact with South America. And he sailed another kind of makeshift boat across the Atlantic successfully. And I think using like the similar type of boat to what the Egyptians would have had. And so I started looking into that. And there's a lot of information that hints that perhaps there was contact between ancient Egypt and the cultures of South America. For one thing, if you look at the Mesoamerican pyramids that are, what are they? They're exactly parallel to the Great Pyramids of Giza or something like that. It's just a bit of a weird coincidence. But there's some interesting things that scientists have discovered when doing autopsies on Egyptian mummies that are many thousands of years old. They're detecting in their cells traces of things that should not be there. For example, nicotine and coca. And the tobacco and coca plants, of course, are not native to Africa. They're native to South America. And so they're wondering now if the Egyptians went there and traded with the South American peoples who'd been there for 10,000 years and brought back things like tobacco and cocaine and things like that. And it became trendy for the rich to use because they're finding these elements in their mummies when they shouldn't be there. But I mean, other scientists are saying that that's not really conclusive evidence. Blah blah blah. Probably because they weren't the ones to make the discovery. So, but it's interesting.
That's kind of mind blowing because the whole Book of Mormon is based upon a group of Jews sailing across the Atlantic and settling in Mesoamerica. And everyone says, "Oh, that's ridiculous." But what you just said, I've never heard that before. What you just said.
No, I recommend looking into it. Egyptian contact with South America. It's very fascinating, and there is documented evidence of ancient cultures crossing the oceans. For example, in Canada, in a place called Newfoundland, they found a Viking settlement that's 1,000 years old. Ruins, of course, they weren't living there. And people researched it, and I guess the Vikings had taken their longships or longboats and sailed up, via Greenland and then down into eastern Canada and made a settlement. And there's evidence that they were trading with the native peoples of the areas and maybe fighting with them. And then after something like 50 years, I think they abandoned the settlement because it was not sustainable or something. But before that discovery of the settlement, I mean, everyone believed that Christopher Columbus, Cristobal, as I think his real name is, responsible for discovering America, which we all now know is nonsense. But so yeah, I don't know. I think we're all guilty of something, and that is believing that ancient peoples were idiots and that they weren't capable of doing anything, and that we're so much more advanced than they are. But that's not true. That's bogus. So look at,
Well, the first time I came into contact with this sort of idea, I never heard about the Egyptians or anything like that. But it was the Chinese who had a fleet of ships, and they sailed down around India to the Middle East, and they went to Africa, down along South Africa, and brought back things like giraffes and stuff like that to China. And I thought, well, that's amazing. That means everyone's like visiting everyone else, essentially, right?
Yep.
And then the Book of Mormon, and I was like, is that really possible? And then you're telling me this stuff. That's kind of mind blowing. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And well, speaking of the Chinese, I was reading a book about that very subject by a pretty learned man, and the Chinese went everywhere, like everywhere. They had a huge navy, thousands and thousands of ships with like gigantic supply networks. They went to South America. Some people think they went course, as you said, to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And there is some documentation or some records that they even visited the Pope in Rome.
Really?
And furthermore, gave the Pope maps. And it seems that there is some record that when Columbus set out, he set out with a map given to him by the Pope, a map showing the Americas. And so how would that be possible? Because no one had been there before, right? But the idea was that the Chinese had provided the Europeans with maps of the world, or whatever maps they had managed to make anyway at that point. And he used that. So, I mean, we say that he was searching for India, but do we really know if that's the case? I mean, we can't go back and ask him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is kind of a far out there theory, but the book I was reading was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't surprise me. And then at some point in their history, one of the emperors of China decided that he was disgusted with the rest of the world, and he recalled the fleets, and then they stopped expanding. Had he not done that, the Chinese could have perhaps colonized the Americas and could have been declaring war on people left and right.
How crazy!
And there could have been a great Chinese empire rather than Great Britain, which would have been. Can you imagine, like Chinese invasion forces occupying Europe and trying to convert people to Confucianism or something like that? That'd actually make for a pretty interesting book, like a novel or a movie.
Wow, that's really, really interesting.
Yeah. Here's I'm going to send you a link to your computer here. You should check out when you have time later about pre-Columbian transoceanic contact, and maybe I'll link to this in our
for sure.
video as well. I don't know if anyone cares, but yeah. So.
Well, that makes me consider the Book of Mormon in a different light than I considered it before.
Okay. So, you're now a Mormon, okay?
No.
No.
No, it's just the idea of, because it narrates stories of, basically there were battles, like a group of Jews came over, and they divided into groups, and they fought with one another and stuff like that, and everyone said, oh, that's impossible. They couldn't have, reached North America and stuff like that. But, who knows? Maybe they did. Who knows? Very interesting. Well, you know what? I think that's a good note on which to end our show this week.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to mention is that we're going to look into getting our episodes in MP3 format so that you can download them and listen to them on the go, because I don't think it's really all that fun to sit at your computer listening to something for an hour. So we'll attempt to do that very soon, and we'll give you an update when we're ready.
We will. And okay, so we hope you guys will tune in either on YouTube, or if we get it in MP3 form by next time. Either way, we hope you'll tune in next week for a new episode. You've been listening to the Internet Paladins, recording in Granada and from elsewhere. And I am the Spaniard.
I'm Jamal, and we wish you a good week.
Indeed we do.